Think Kiribati is just another tiny Pacific island nobody's heard of? You won't believe what this disappearing nation is hiding. Wait until you find out they're planning to buy their own country, have laws that would shock you, and exist in all 4 hemispheres at once. Number 15. Kiribati is literally buying its own backup country in case it disappears underwater. You heard right. This nation of 120,000 people is so concerned about rising sea levels that their government has been secretly purchasing land in Fiji as a potential new homeland. Think about that for a second. Imagine your entire country having to shop for a replacement because the ocean might swallow your current one. Sea levels are expected to rise by 0.44 to 0.76 meters by 2100, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and sea level rise may cover more than 50% of Tarawa's land, threatening over 60% of the island's population. The Kiribati government spent $8.8 million on 20 square kilometers of land in Fiji, not for vacation properties or investment, but as literal survival insurance. None are more than 4 meters above sea level at their highest point. This makes it one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to climate change. Picture entire villages practicing evacuation drills, not for natural disasters, but for the slow, inevitable rise of the ocean around their homes. Here's the scary part. They're not just planning for their grandchildren. Some estimates suggest parts of Kiribati could be uninhabitable within 30 years. While Americans worry about retirement savings, Kiribati families are literally saving money to relocate their entire bloodline to a different country. Number 14. This country exists in all 4 hemispheres simultaneously, something no other nation on Earth can claim. Sounds unbelievable, but Kiribati consists of about 32 atolls and 1 solitary island, Banaba, extending into the eastern and western hemispheres as well as the northern and southern hemispheres. It is the only country that is situated within all 4 hemispheres. Imagine trying to explain your address when your country literally wraps around the entire planet. The islands stretch across 3.5 million square kilometers of ocean. That's larger than India. Yet the total landmass is smaller than New York City. You could be standing on one Kiribati island watching the sunrise while your friend on another Kiribati island 4,000 kilometers away is watching the sunset on the same day. The international dateline actually cuts right through the middle of the country, meaning some Kiribati citizens are literally living 24 hours ahead of other Kiribati citizens. Think your family WhatsApp group has scheduling issues? Try coordinating a national holiday when half your country is in tomorrow and half is in yesterday. GPS systems regularly malfunction here because they can't process a single country existing in such impossible geographical positions. Number 13. Their traditional stick dances called tirere are performed only during major life events, and each movement tells stories passed down for over 700 years. Wait until you find out what these performances actually represent. These stick dances, or tirere, pronounced sirere, are only performed during major ceremonies, and every single movement has meaning passed down through generations. Picture this: warriors in grass skirts wielding meter-long sticks, moving in perfect synchronization while chanting in ancient Gilbertese. But here's what tourists don't know. Each dance sequence represents real historical battles, creation myths, or prophecies about the future. The dancers spend months memorizing not just the choreography but the exact meaning behind every gesture, because honestly, one wrong movement could accidentally tell the story of your enemy's victory instead of your ancestors' triumph. Some tirere performances last for 6 hours straight, with dancers rotating in and out while maintaining the narrative flow. The Kiribati traditional dances are a distinctive form of art and expression. The movement of the feet, hands, and of course the whole body mimics the movement of the frigate birds while walking and soaring, but deeper dances also recreate the movement of ocean currents, the growth patterns of coconut palms, and even the mating rituals of sea turtles. If you're invited to witness a tirere performance, you're not just watching a dance, you're experiencing a living library of their civilization. Number 12. The entire country runs on a traditional council system called Maneaba, where every major decision requires village-wide consensus, and it actually works. Think democracy is slow? Try making decisions in Kiribati. Cultural practices such as community meetings under the Maneaba, the traditional meeting house to socialize and feast, called a botaki, respect of elderly people, guest hospitality, and importance of family remain important facets in the culture of Kiribati. Every village has a maniaba, a massive thatched roof building where the entire community gathers for hours, sometimes days, to discuss everything from fishing rights to marriage disputes. Here's where it gets interesting. No decision can be made until literally everyone agrees. Not majority vote, not representative democracy, unanimous consensus. Imagine trying to decide where to order pizza when everyone in your neighborhood has to agree first. These meetings can stretch for 12-hour sessions with breaks only for meals, and the discussion continues until the most stubborn villager is finally convinced. But here's the shocking part: it works. Kiribati has one of the lowest crime rates in the Pacific, virtually no civil unrest, and community disputes that would tear apart Western societies get resolved through patient conversation. The trade-off? Simple decisions like building a new toilet block can take 3 months of weekly meetings. When your village's Wi-Fi goes down, expect a 6-hour community debate about whether to fix it or accept it as a sign from the ancestors. Number 11. Women in Kiribati society hold a fascinating paradox. They're considered inferior in traditional culture yet control most of the actual economic power. You won't believe this contradiction that defines daily life for 60,000 Kiribati women. While Kiribati society is currently egalitarian, democratic, and respectful of human rights in the traditional culture, women occupy a subordinate role. Job opportunities for women are limited, and there is no law against gender discrimination. Few women have served in key governmental or political positions. Officially, men make the big decisions and hold the ceremonial power. But walk through any Kiribati market, and you'll discover women control 80% of small business transactions, manage most family finances, and run the informal banking system that actually keeps the economy functioning. Here's the weird part. Women can't traditionally speak first in maniaba meetings, but they control the purse strings that fund whatever decisions men make in those meetings. Picture a society where your husband can decide your family needs a new fishing boat, but you decide whether there's actually money to buy it. This creates hilarious scenarios where male village chiefs have to quietly ask their wives for permission to make grand proclamations they've already announced to the community. Many Kiribati men will tell you they run their households, but ask them where the savings are kept or how much rice costs, and they'll sheepishly direct you to ask their wives. It's like having a constitutional monarchy where the king makes speeches but the queen holds the treasury keys. Number 10. The entire country's internet runs through a single underwater cable, and when it breaks, the nation literally disappears from the digital world for weeks. Here's the scary part about living in the most isolated nation on Earth. Kiribati's connection to global internet depends on one submarine fiber optic cable stretching 5,000 kilometers across the Pacific Ocean floor. When that cable breaks, and it does break regularly, the entire country goes dark digitally. Think about that. 120,000 people suddenly cut off from email, social media, online banking, GPS navigation, and even basic weather forecasting. The last major outage lasted 18 days in 2022, and the islands had to communicate with the outside world using satellite phones that cost $15 per minute. Imagine trying to explain to your boss that you can't join Zoom meetings because your entire country is offline, and the repair ship won't arrive for another week. Local businesses that depend on online transactions simply shut down during outages. Students can't access online courses. Families can't video call relatives working overseas, which is devastating because 20% of Kiribati's economy depends on remittances from citizens working abroad. The psychological impact is profound too. People describe feeling like their country has been erased from existence. You can't Google your own nation's news, can't check if other countries still remember you exist. When the cable finally gets repaired, there's literally a national celebration. Children who've never experienced internet outages in other countries think this digital disappearing act is normal. Parents have to maintain backup communication plans that sound like Cold War spy novels, complete with predetermined meeting points and analog message systems. Number 9. They have a 400-year-old legal system where serious crimes are punished not with jail time, but with forced community service that can last decades. Sounds unbelievable, but Kiribati's traditional justice system makes modern courts look like amateur hour. When someone commits a serious offense like theft, assault, or adultery, they don't go to prison. Instead, the Maniaba Council sentences them to serve the entire community until their debt is considered paid. We're talking 10 to 15 years of mandatory community service for major crimes. Picture this. A man caught stealing fishing nets must now maintain every community boat, rebuild seawalls and tend community gardens until the village collectively agrees he's earned forgiveness. The guilty person can't leave the island, can't marry, and must eat meals separately from their family. Their children grow up watching their parents serve others every single day. But here's where it gets interesting. This system has a 95% success rate at preventing repeat offenses. The shame factor is so intense that people will confess to crimes just to begin their service period sooner. Some offenders become so dedicated to community service that villages actually compete to keep them after their sentence ends. There are stories of former criminals who became so valued for their forced labor contributions that communities built special houses to convince them to stay permanently. The system even handles murder cases this way. The killer must support the victim's family for life, including paying for children's education and caring for elderly parents. Western lawyers visiting Kiribati describe this as simultaneously the most brutal and most effective justice system they've ever encountered. Number 8. The dating culture involves elaborate month-long courtship rituals where men must prove they can provide coconuts, fish, and protection in increasingly dramatic demonstrations. Think modern dating apps are complicated? Wait until you hear about finding love in Kiribati. Traditional courtship requires men to demonstrate their worthiness through escalating challenges that sound like reality TV show elimination rounds. First, the suitor must catch and present specific types of fish using only traditional methods, no modern gear allowed. Then he must climb coconut palms daily for a month to provide fresh coconuts to the woman's entire extended family. But here's where it gets extreme. The final test requires building a functional shelter that can withstand tropical storms, proving he can literally protect his future family from natural disasters. The woman's family judges each performance, and failure at any stage means starting over from the beginning. Some men attempt these courtship trials multiple times before succeeding, spending years perfecting their coconut climbing technique or learning to spear fish in rough seas. The pressure is so intense that many young Kiribati men spend their teenage years in intense training camps with elder fishermen and coconut farmers, preparing for eventual marriage attempts like Olympic athletes. Villages keep informal scorecards of which young men have the best courtship statistics. During courtship season, you'll see exhausted suitors collapsing on beaches after dawn-to-dusk fishing expeditions and coconut groves filled with men practicing climbing techniques. The woman being courted isn't passive either. She must demonstrate her own skills in weaving, food preparation, and traditional medicine. Some courtships involve 3 to 4 couples competing simultaneously for marriage approval, creating village-wide entertainment that residents follow like sports seasons. Number 7. Their traditional calendar system divides the year into 13 months based on bird migration patterns, and getting the timing wrong can result in community banishment. You heard right, Kiribati traditionally operates on a completely different time system that would confuse any visitor trying to schedule appointments. The traditional calendar follows the migration patterns of frigate birds, with each month lasting anywhere from 22 to 35 days depending on when specific bird populations arrive or depart from different atolls. The movement of the feet, hands, and of course the whole body mimics the movement of the frigate birds. This isn't just cultural decoration. Getting the timing wrong has serious consequences. Traditional fishing laws, planting seasons, and marriage ceremonies are all scheduled according to this bird calendar, and violating the timing can result in social ostracism or even forced relocation to uninhabited islands. Picture trying to explain to your Western business partners that you can't attend their meeting because the red-footed boobies haven't arrived yet. So technically, it's still the previous month. Some islands maintain dedicated bird watchers whose full-time job is tracking migration patterns and officially announcing calendar transitions. These calendar keepers hold more social power than elected officials in traditional communities. When bird migration patterns change due to climate change, which happens increasingly often, entire villages must adjust their annual schedules, sometimes shortening or extending months by weeks. Children grow up learning to read weather patterns and bird behavior before they learn to read books. The result is a population with supernatural abilities to predict storms, seasonal changes, and natural disasters, but who struggle with digital calendars and international time zones. Some Kiribati citizens working overseas maintain dual calendar systems, tracking both Western dates and traditional bird time to stay connected to their cultural obligations back home. Number 6. The country has developed a unique solution to freshwater shortage. They've trained every citizen to become a human water dowser using traditional techniques passed down for generations. Here's the funny part about survival in a nation where freshwater is literally more valuable than gold. With no rivers, lakes, or reliable rainfall, Kiribati citizens have developed almost supernatural abilities to locate underground freshwater lenses, using nothing but their bare hands, traditional tools, and inherited knowledge that would make professional geologists jealous. Children as young as 6 years old learn to detect freshwater by tasting sand samples, feeling ground temperature variations with their feet, and reading subtle changes in vegetation patterns. The training is so intensive that the average Kiribati adult can locate freshwater sources with 80% accuracy, better than modern dowsing equipment. Villages maintain secret freshwater maps passed down through family lines, with some families guarding the locations of their freshwater sources like military secrets. During severe droughts, water dowsers become the most respected members of society, with successful water finders receiving marriage proposals and community leadership positions. But here's where it gets extreme. Misidentifying a freshwater source during drought seasons is considered such a serious offense that false dowsers can face permanent exile. The psychological pressure has created a generation of citizens with anxiety disorders specifically related to water location accuracy. Some families spend decades perfecting their dowsing techniques, with grandparents training grandchildren in meditation-like practices for detecting underground water through ground vibrations. Visitors often witness what looks like religious ceremonies but are actually intensive water dowsing training sessions, complete with blindfolded participants trying to locate buried water containers by touch and intuition alone. Number 5. They've created the world's most extreme fishing laws. Certain fish can only be caught during specific moon phases, and violations result in having your fishing rights permanently revoked for your entire bloodline. Think environmental protection laws are strict in your country? Kiribati's traditional fishing regulations make modern environmental agencies look like amateur conservationists. The islands operate under a complex system where different fish species can only be harvested during specific lunar cycles, tidal conditions, and seasonal windows. And the penalties for violations are absolutely brutal. Get caught catching parrotfish during the wrong moon phase, and not only do you lose your fishing rights for life, but your children and grandchildren are also permanently banned from fishing in community waters. We're talking about multi-generational punishment that can destroy family livelihoods for centuries. The enforcement system is equally extreme. Every fishing expedition is monitored by community elders who memorize the exact fishing rights and restrictions for every family bloodline going back 200 years. Some families carry fishing calendars so complex they require daily consultation with traditional lunar experts to determine what they're legally allowed to catch each day. The result is the most sustainable fishing practices on Earth. Fish populations around Kiribati remain stable while other Pacific islands experience severe depletion. But the social cost is intense. Families live in constant fear of accidentally violating fishing laws that change based on weather patterns, moon phases, and seasonal migrations. Some young people choose to leave Kiribati permanently rather than risk making a mistake that could curse their future descendants. Villages maintain elaborate record-keeping systems tracking which families have lost fishing rights and for how long, creating a complex social hierarchy based on fishing law compliance that affects everything from marriage prospects to political influence. Number 4. The entire nation practices a form of collective property ownership so extreme that personal possessions literally don't exist. Everything belongs to everyone, and trying to claim individual ownership can result in community execution. Sounds like communist propaganda, but Kiribati's traditional property system makes Soviet collectivization look like capitalist individualism. In traditional Kiribati society, the concept of personal ownership is not just discouraged, it's considered a dangerous mental illness that threatens community survival. Land, boats, fishing equipment, even clothing and food are all considered community property that individuals are temporarily permitted to use. Attempting to claim permanent ownership of any significant item is treated as a form of insanity that must be corrected through intervention, exile, or in extreme historical cases, execution. Picture trying to explain your iPhone to a community that considers the idea of your phone to be a symptom of psychological disorder. The system works through complex rotation schedules where families take turns using community resources, boats, fishing nets, even houses, based on need, seasons, and community decisions. Some visitors describe it as the most successful communist society in human history, but locals don't think of it as political ideology. It's just practical survival on tiny islands where resource hoarding by individuals would doom everyone. The psychological adaptation is profound. Kiribati children grow up with no concept of mine versus yours, leading to fascinating cultural exchanges when they encounter visitors with personal belongings. Some young Kiribati citizens studying abroad experience severe culture shock when they discover other societies allow individual property ownership, describing it as learning that other cultures permit organized selfishness. However, this system creates problems for modern economic development, as international businesses struggle to negotiate contracts with societies that don't recognize individual or even family ownership rights. Number 3. They have mandatory communal parenting where every adult in the village helps raise every child, and biological parents have no special authority over their own children's major life decisions. Wait until you find out how radically different family structures work in Kiribati. Traditional child-rearing operates on a village-wide collective system that makes modern co-parenting arrangements look simple. Every adult in the community has equal authority over every child, regardless of biological relationships. Your birth parents feed and house you, but any adult can discipline you, assign you work, or make decisions about your education and future. Picture walking through a village where any adult can send you home, make you do chores, or lecture you about your behavior, and your biological parents are expected to support whatever punishment or instruction you receive. The system extends to major life decisions. Marriage partners, career choices, and education paths are decided by community consensus, with biological parents having just one voice among many. Some children grow up closer to their assigned mentors, adult community members chosen to guide their development, than to their birth parents. The psychological impact is fascinating. Kiribati children develop incredible social skills and community loyalty, but many struggle with individual identity and personal autonomy. Village meetings regularly include discussions about which adults should take primary responsibility for specific children's development based on the child's interests and the adult's expertise. Some adults specialize in raising future fishermen, others in training future traditional craftspeople or community leaders. The system creates incredibly strong community bonds, but also intense social pressure. Children know that disappointing one adult means disappointing the entire village. Parents who try to claim exclusive authority over their biological children face community intervention that can include forced parenting classes or even temporary separation from their children until they accept the collective system. Number 2. The country has developed the world's most sophisticated oral history system where designated memory keepers can recite their entire civilization's history word for word, and making even minor errors results in ritual suicide. Here's the scary part about preserving 1,000 years of history without writing. Kiribati maintains professional memory keepers called traditional historians, whose job is to memorize and perfectly recite the complete oral history of their people. We're talking about 40 to 60 hours of continuous storytelling that covers everything from creation myths to genealogies of every family line to detailed accounts of every major event, war, and cultural change spanning centuries. These memory keepers begin training in childhood, spending 15 to 20 years learning to recite historical accounts with perfect accuracy. The pressure is so extreme that traditionally, memory keepers who made significant errors during public recitations were expected to commit ritual suicide to prevent corrupted history from being passed to future generations. Even today, memory keepers who make mistakes during ceremonies face permanent social exile and are forbidden from teaching the oral traditions to others. Picture having to memorize the entire Encyclopedia Britannica perfectly, knowing that forgetting a single date or name could result in community banishment. Some memory keepers develop anxiety disorders so severe they refuse to speak the oral histories outside of formal ceremonies, terrified of accidentally altering a detail through casual conversation. The training process is so intensive that many candidates experience mental breakdowns and must be replaced by backup trainees. Villages sometimes maintain 3 or 4 memory keepers simultaneously to prevent historical knowledge from being lost if one keeper dies or becomes mentally incapacitated. The oral histories are so detailed that they include weather patterns, astronomical events, and seasonal changes from hundreds of years ago, making them valuable resources for modern climate scientists studying long-term Pacific weather trends. Some memory keepers can recite genealogies going back 30 generations, including not just names but personality traits, major accomplishments, and cause of death for thousands of individuals. Kiribati is implementing the world's first planned national extinction policy. They're systematically preparing their entire civilization to cease existing as a country within the next 50 years. Think about the absolute insanity of what this means. An entire nation is actively planning its own disappearance. Sea levels are expected to rise by 0.44 to 0.76 meters by 2100, and government officials estimate that sea level rise may cover more than 50% of Tarawa's land, threatening over 60% of the island's population. Kiribati has become the first country in human history to officially acknowledge that it will cease to exist and is systematically preparing every aspect of their society for organized dissolution. Government departments include these so-called National Extinction Planning Committees, whose full-time job is, honestly, coordinating the end of their own country. They're creating detailed protocols for transferring citizenship to other nations, preserving cultural artifacts in international museums, and training citizens for immigration to countries that will accept Kiribati climate refugees. None are more than 4 meters above sea level at their highest point. This makes it one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to climate change. Schools now include mandatory courses on cultural preservation for national diaspora, where children learn how to maintain Kiribati traditions while living in foreign countries. The government maintains national memory vaults, climate-controlled facilities containing detailed records of their entire civilization, designed to survive long after the islands disappear underwater. They've negotiated planned relocation treaties with Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia, which are essentially pre-arranged refugee agreements for their entire population. The psychological impact is devastating. Parents raise children knowing they're preparing them to be the last generation of their country. Some families hold pre-mourning ceremonies for their homeland while they're still living on it. The planning is so detailed they've calculated the exact order in which different islands will become uninhabitable, creating evacuation timelines that span decades. Citizens practice cultural condensation exercises where they reduce their entire cultural identity to portable elements that can survive in foreign countries. It's simultaneously the most pragmatic and most heartbreaking government policy in human history. So we've just discovered Kiribati's most shocking secrets, from buying backup countries to planning their own extinction. Which one absolutely blew your mind? Have you ever experienced a country that exists in impossible places and times? Hit that subscribe button for more mind-bending facts about nations you never knew existed.